Welcome, everyone. I'm Jennifer Sherman. I'm the Digital Marketing Coordinator. I work at the Influencer Collective, and we have a great webinar today on vulnerability management and penetration scanning on the AWS cloud. We have GP here from stackArmor, Rick Holsch, he's the product director at stackArmor, and the wonderful Dan Allison, CTO at Indiggo. So we hope you enjoy, and if you have any questions, just let us know. GP?
Jennifer, thank you very much for that introduction. And for those of you that are dialed in and viewing the screen, if you have any technical support issues, please go ahead and use the webinar ID that's on your screen. It is 994-849-691. And call the either toll-free or the 805 number, which is the GoToWebinar number, to make sure that they can help you resolve any technical difficulties. And if you're interested in sharing questions, then please do so using your GoToWebinar console, which we have shown here. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm GP. I'm the CEO and founder of stackArmor, and we'll be covering a couple of different topics for you today. As soon as we can get the slides situated, there we go. So the topics that we'll be covering for you today are around vulnerability management, penetration scanning, and really making sure that the environments that you have running in the Amazon cloud are secure and protected in compliance with security best practices. It gives me great pleasure to also welcome one of our customers, Dan Allison, who is the Chief Technology Officer at Indiggo, and they have been an Amazon consumer running a high-performance SaaS platform for many years, and they have some really interesting insights into security and compliance and why it's important to their business. And then finally, we'll talk to you a little bit about a solution that we have in the marketplace called stackArmor ThreatAlert, to go in and help make it a little bit easier to go in and make sure that the environments that you have in the Amazon cloud are protected. And then, of course, we'll be going through some Q&A. So a little bit about stackArmor. We are about 3.5 years old, and we focus on basically helping our customers run and operate their workloads on the Amazon platform in a secure and compliant manner. We've done this for many years, and our focus is customers in the public sector, healthcare, and financial services markets that have specific either HIPAA, NIST, or FFIEC compliance requirements. And we're an advanced AWS consulting partner with many different competencies to help our clients migrate successfully into AWS. So let's talk a little bit about how do we go in and secure our workloads and do vulnerability and penetration scanning on AWS. And the start really is the access to and the availability of top-of-the-line security software and capabilities. And so one of the strong recommendations that we make to our customers is the use of the Amazon Marketplace, which is a great resource for getting access to high quality security and other software. And not only do you get access to this software, but also you're able to go in and get transparent pricing. You can, just like you go in and buy a book on Amazon.com or do shopping on Amazon.com, you can shop for enterprise software on this wonderful resource. So we have relationships with some of the top security providers in the country, Trend Micro, RSA, Splunk, Palo Alto, and so we'll talk to you about a little bit about those, and we'll also talk to you a little bit about Anchor, which is a deep image scanning software that we have a partnership with for Docker containers. So let's move on and talk a little bit about some challenges in the cloud security space. One of the things that the top questions that happens that arises when we go in and migrate to the cloud is somehow this notion that once I'm in the cloud, everything is sort of taken care of for me. And I think that there is an element of education where really it's important to understand the shared responsibility model. And what this slide talks about is what are the areas that you as a customer, those are the top 5 layers of the stack, if you will, that you're really responsible for. And so therefore, all kinds of vulnerability management, cybersecurity related issues around encryption, etc., need to be really handled by you. The areas that typically Amazon or the cloud provider would be responsible for are the things in and around the infrastructure. And so understanding this piece is a key part to making sure that your vulnerabilities and penetration testing is commensurate with the layer that you're responsible for. So really, in most cases, operating system and up is the responsibility of the customer or their designated vendor in the event that they have a managed security provider or a managed services provider. So again, this is the first key step that many customers sometimes miss in trying to make sure that their environments are protected. So it's important to understand what areas are we responsible for and what are the areas that we can rely on Amazon for. So one of the great things that platforms like AWS provide us is a rich portfolio of services. So clearly, Amazon understands that the customer or the operator is responsible for maintaining the security of their workloads, their data, their environment, and they want to make it as easy as possible to do those activities. So what you see on this slide is, again, we do a lot of work for government, healthcare, and financial services customers. So typically, if you have a compliance framework such as NIST, there are typically what's called security control families, which are listed on the left-hand side. Those are the key areas that you are responsible for and have to speak to how you're going in and protecting your environment. So for against each one of these security control families, what you can see is a rich portfolio of what we call cloud native services, meaning these are services that Amazon provides to you and allows you to consume those services easily, such that you can then go in and craft a solution with the minimum cost and time, and without hopefully the need to go in and buy too much additional software if that's the approach you want to take. And so again, the key part here is you have to be familiar with obviously all of these additional services and what they can do for you and how you can go ahead and protect your environment, especially if you are a customer in one of the regulated markets. So as I talked about, it is interesting to see a lot of our customers obviously take the dip their toe and sort of move into the cloud. But some of the top challenges that we've heard again and again, while platforms like Amazon EC2 are very powerful and they offer a lot of tools for self-service and for allowing us to be successful and secure, many times customers underestimate what it takes to go in and not only do the migration, but also make sure that security best practices are followed. And so these are just some top customer challenges where essentially customers sometimes perhaps underestimated the amount of effort or the expertise that might be required as you move on into this sort of brave new world of being in the cloud space. And so again, it's critical to make sure as you sort of take that leap, you want to make sure that you have adequate understanding and talent to go in and make sure that you're safe and secure in the cloud. So at this stage, what I want to do is switch it over to one of our customers and have Dan Allison, who is the Chief Technology Officer, talk a little bit about how they successfully migrated to the cloud and how they have been successful in staying secure on the platform. Dan, I want to turn it over to you, and if you would tell our audience a little bit about your background and more importantly, tell us a little bit about the Indiggo Leadership Platform and what you do for your customers.
Sure. Thank you, GP. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to join you on this call today. So a little bit about me. So I am the CTO with Indiggo. I've been with Indiggo for almost 2 years now. Prior to that, I was actually in financial services for about 14 years, and then in behavioral health care as a CTO for an electronic medical record company for about 3 years. During that time, I've had to deal with a number of assessments and a number of regulations. Back in the day with the SAS 70 assessments, along with the SSAE 16 assessments, and then finally, of course, with healthcare, I've been dealing with HIPAA, and now with Indiggo and with stackArmor's assistance, we are NIST 853 Revision 4 compliant. From my side, I've been managing teams all over the world for the last almost 16 years, and it's been a very heavy emphasis on secure infrastructure and secure code. So I'm really happy to be here today to discuss AWS Cloud Security. So for Indiggo, oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, would love to hear a little bit about, and I think you were about to talk about that, is give the audience a flavor for what the Indiggo leadership platform is all about.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah. So for us, we are a startup. We've actually been around for some time. Our founders have been running a consultancy practice and a business practice of leadership coaching and leadership execution. And they saw a real need for a platform to focus on leadership strategy and leadership execution. So Indiggo is an intelligent technology platform that bridges the gap between strategy and leadership execution. Our platform drives leaders and managers to focus on their most important monthly priorities in alignment with the company priorities. It's really quite interesting. I mean, there's, with various leaders and organizations, a lot of times they don't know what each other is prioritized on, and that's what our platform delivers for them. It's a problem many of them didn't know they could solve, and we are doing that by giving them the intelligence about what each one is working on. And so leaders are no longer flying blind. Some of the problems that we are solving is through lateral transparency and accountability. It's a very exciting time to be here. We're one of the first into this space, and we've had some great success with some very large clients.
Thank you for that, Dan. I think it's very clear that in our working with you, you've really had a lot of success in obviously working with large customers. Moving on to sort of the next slide, and obviously you're the man in the hot seat who's obviously running this platform on a day-to-day basis and are responsible and accountable to your leadership and obviously to your customers. So can you share with us a little bit of the ingredients of your success and why you think security and compliance is so important to you, and why even as a startup you have decided to make such investments? So just give our audience a flavor for what your day-to-day life looks like, what are some of the best practices you have incorporated, and just sort of share with the audience a little bit more about sort of your day-to-day life as a cloud SaaS operator.
Sure. Well, I will tell you that for us, we, not only have we passed the NIST assessments, but we have passed large financial services provider assessments. We've passed one of the largest media companies in the world security assessment, also healthcare companies assessments, security assessments. And for us, the reason we are integrating with many of the services on the enterprise side. And so, IT teams, especially large enterprise IT teams, they're a little leery of opening up to a small startup like ourselves. Having us be compliant to NIST 853 has really allowed us to get our foot in the door. I mean, I've been talking to various financial services companies, and some of them are actually certified on the same standards. And so one of the guys actually said, "Well, you guys have your stuff together if you're compliant with that." And so it's been actually really helpful to be able to just get into the door and let them know that we're very serious. We've actually dedicated a lot of time, energy, and money to being compliant. And we take security very seriously here because we do integrate with these other, with the services within the organization. So that's what helped us on the compliance side of things, GP. I will say from some of the challenges that we've been working through, I actually like how you kind of mentioned it with that the layers that you had there. AWS is amazing. It gives us plenty of tools, but to actually get everything proper, set up correctly, that has been one of the bigger challenges. So for us, one of the challenges we had was I wanted to make sure everything was encrypted at rest and in transit. Luckily, AWS makes that fairly straightforward, but you still have to plan for it and dedicate time to it. The other things that we've been doing is running our Nessus scans. So we use Nessus scans for vulnerability scans. We run that on a weekly basis, and we run it after each code release. So we have to make sure that whatever we put into production, we run those scans, make sure that there's no vulnerabilities that have been introduced. And if something has been raised as a red flag, we remediate that right away. Some of the other challenges and you kind of touched on it with some of the tools that AWS has, there is plenty to do with disaster recovery. But a lot of it was just taking the time to really plan out our regions that we're going to bring our application back up in, plan out our RTOs, our recovery time objectives, our recovery point objectives, and then building all of our scripts to do the end-to-end. I will tell you that after many years of having this completely manual and running my own hardware and everything else, AWS makes it a breeze, but it still took months for us to get it into the good spot where we feel very confident about it, that if we run into a problem, we will be able to get back up very quickly.
That sounds wonderful, Dan. Again, really appreciate you sharing that with our audience. And could you maybe perhaps just talk a little bit about how you've sort of organized your team? So clearly you're doing secure DevOps, and as you mentioned that you're going in and doing Nessus scans, vulnerability scans at every deployment. Could you talk a little bit about how perhaps the stackArmor security team or the ThreatAlert solution, what are some of the things that you felt that complemented what you were doing and how it helps you gain all of these wonderful certifications that you talked about related to being able to pass these the security inspections, if you will, of all of these large providers?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have so just kind of an overall view of the team. We in-house we have our dev team and our QA team. We do have some outsourced DevOps to help us, and then we also have your team, obviously, the stackArmor group, as our third-party security vendor for us. We work with your top folks, Terry and Fawad, who are fantastic in IAS, who help us, make sure that whatever we're putting into production is following the security standards and security protocols that are set forth. I will tell you that the ThreatAlert, and I know you're going to speak about that more further into the presentation. The ThreatAlert report has been great. From our side, just to give a kind of a brief story about some of the things that it catches. We did have a security group change that was performed by a DevOps person, which that person was actually authorized to make that change, so it was okay, but it was unexpected. I wasn't thinking that there needed to be a security group change. The ThreatAlert report flagged that. And it turned out that this DevOps person was actually ahead of schedule on a project, so therefore that's why they were making that change. But the nice thing was that it drove that conversation, and it's something that now whenever we run that report, I take a look at it. If anything's out of the ordinary, I can jump right into figuring out what's going on with the why the DevOps person might have made that change or what they're running into. And this is for not just prod, but it's also for stage and for our dev environment that we have at AWS as well. So it's been actually very, very helpful to know that this report is going to flag anything that might change in our environment.
That's awesome, Dan. That's great to hear. And again, we are deeply appreciative of customers like yourself who are, like you say, early adopters and providing us critical feedback. And I know my colleague Rick, who's our product manager for ThreatAlert, will talk a little bit about this. And really, it's feedback from customers like yourself, and I really appreciate your testimonial as well. That help us obviously get better and continue to offer these services. Dan, I know you have an urgent appointment, and I truly, truly want to thank you for being on this webinar broadcast and sharing with us your thoughts on cloud security. And I wanted to obviously thank you and obviously congratulate you and your team for the wonderful success on the Indiggo leadership platform and the tremendous, adoption you've had with some of these really tough customers to sort of get into. So again, thank you for being on the call, and appreciate your participation.
Absolutely, GP. Thank you so much for having me, and I appreciate you kind of moving the schedule around for my schedule. If any questions come out of this, or if anybody on the webinar wants to get in contact with us, I think on the previous slide it had some of our contact information, indiggolead.com, or they can reach out to you and reach out to me. That'd be fine.
Absolutely, Dan. We will pass along any questions, and we really, again, appreciate your participation.
Excellent. Thank you, guys. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Dan. Okay. All right, folks. So let's now move on to stackArmor Threat Alert. And what I would like to do at this point is introduce my colleague, Rick Folch, who is our product manager for Threat Alert. And he will talk to you a little bit about how you can go in and use all of the wonderful tools and services that Amazon provides in a manner that helps you stay secure and be productive at the same time. So Rick, I will hand it over to you if you would like to just quickly introduce yourself and walk the audience through the rest of the presentation.
Sure, thank you, GP. Hi, everybody. I'm Rick Felch. I am the product manager and director of technical services here at stackArmor, and I am the product manager for stackArmor Threat Alert. And you're going to see all these great digital aspects of Threat Alert, but I would say that Threat Alert is more than just a software or a tool. It's an entire system that comprises of Amazon services, some tools, and most importantly, people, security analysts. So I'm going to start from the left side to the right side of this particular slide to kind of give you guys an idea of what we're talking about with what Threat Alert works with. And everybody has DevOps or SecDevOps or applications, and they all comprise of things like Jenkins. They're sitting in GitHub. They run on, they're running on Docker, or Red Hat Linux, and most importantly on Amazon Web Services. And so you have in this what I would like to say is great power, as you saw on the slide, previous slide with GP on the various layers of security. And what you heard from Dan earlier is that you have this great power in Amazon to get things up and running very quickly. And I always like to look at it like that old quote from the early Spider-Man, the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies, what Uncle Ben said, with great power comes great responsibility. And in that case, the great responsibility is that while it's very easy to get things up and running, it's also very easy to be less than secure. And that's kind of where stackArmor Threat Alert comes into play. We want our clients, we want businesses to focus on their business. And obviously, security is part of the business now, but that doesn't mean that you necessarily as a business leader need to worry about security groups. That's where Threat Alert comes in. We can ingest data, almost real time from a multitude of sources, be it Jenkins, be it containers, by using our partner Anchor, through Linux logs, and Amazon itself. Amazon is a rich source of data to be ingested and brought to light in terms of where you might have particular issues. So we like to do it based on scoring, following NIST levels of critical, high, medium, and low. But we don't stop there. The data comes in, and it's obviously brought in via automated procedures. We're not going to sit there and type stuff in. But once the data's in, we want to look at that data. We have people, we have analysts that are going to make sure that you're not getting, false positives. Or, we'll even take a look and say, hey, this looks really odd. Is this really a finding? And we'll go in, and as long as we have access to your AWS, we'll make sure that things are marked up correctly. And it's not just that. It's not just the alerts. It's also the reporting. And as Dan had mentioned, that we take pride in ourselves. We provide a really neat dashboard. It's got a map. It shows where your threats are coming from, or your bad actors. But where we're finding that there's a bit of a dashboard fatigue, which I'll show you guys, of course, all this, is that we're finding that the report that we deliver on the basis of which the client requires provides almost the most bang for the buck. And that report, we work with you to understand what you need to see in that report, what you want, and then we provide that with you, but not just as data that has raw and form come out of a system, but as data that's been analyzed and verified, and it comes with recommendations. And that's the other important part. We're not just going to leave you out high and dry and say, hey, you have this high-level finding, have fun. We do our best using the guidelines of well-architected framework, among other things, to give you the recommendation that we know that's going to make your business more secure. So obviously, as you see and heard from Dan, it's not just continuous monitoring of threats, but it's also making sure that you're compliant. And obviously compliance typically will take things like needing continuous monitoring, needing to keep up to date and make sure everything's secure. So it's a whole slew of things that you as the business owner running an AWS need to understand or deal with, but maybe don't need to get into the details. And that's where ThreatAlert comes in, because ThreatAlert is made as a system of tools and people to provide you with that ability to work safely and run your business in AWS. So these are things that you'll see. You need a hardened hosting environment. Well, that's something that part of ThreatAlert process can do, is make sure that your OS or your containers are hardened, your images are hardened. Do you need data breach hack attempt monitoring? Well, we get data in continuously. I mean, you have logging that's going on in all of your tools, and they come into us, and then we are making sure that we understand when you have potential problems from low to critical. It just depends on what's going on. If it's low, it typically means somebody's sniffing around. If it's critical, it means somebody probably got through, and we're going to let you know right away. And that's pretty important to understand as part of the ThreatAlert process. Is it's not about, oh, they're getting a report next week, we'll let them know about the critical event next week. If there's something critical, and again, we're using NIST to help us guide us in terms of what the severity is. If something's critical, well, we're going to get with you right away. We're going to let you understand, oh, hey, you don't have antivirus on this server. It's open for X number of vulnerabilities. And of course, reporting comes with all of this. So we have intelligent threat detection of account compromise, instance compromise, and malicious reconnaissance. This just means we continually have data coming in, and we're continually using it to understand where your potential vulnerabilities are. How can we proactively help you to not have to ever meet up with those particular threat actors? We do deep container image inspection. We use one of the preeminent tools for making sure that your Docker containers are secure by using our partner Anchor.io and taking that data, which is rich with understanding of what's really going on security-wise with your containers, and making sure it shows up in reports and poem boards. We do vulnerability assessments and scanning. We have great tools that we use that we work in, depending on the environments, to make sure that we come back and report to you where you're seeing issues. And you'll see some of that in a sample report that I'll show as part of the demo. We have our cloud security scan. This is a cornerstone or an anchor of ThreatAlert, which is we're continuously scanning AWS, your AWS infrastructures, to make sure that you're always well architected and that you don't have vulnerabilities. They show up, like Dan said, things can just be turned on. Well, our scan it's a very small footprint, and it's continually checking. And as it lets us know, we can let you know. And as Dan showed you, based on NIST, we said, hey, I remember exactly what he was talking about. This isn't a critical issue, but you've got this port open and it's kind of open to a few new things. He said, oh yeah, okay. They looked into it and says, yep, this is going on. Great. Value add, big time. We have customized alerts and actionable intelligence. We have security analysts. This is important. We have people behind the tools, behind the data. We make sure that when you get informed of something, it's been looked at by somebody. It's not just here's some raw data that came out of one of the systems. As a guy that's been in this for about 20 years, and as I think some of you know, plenty of times a system will alert you to something that turns out to be a false positive. Remediation, harden, guidance. We are a staff that knows well-architected frameworks, we know compliance structures, and we use, as part of the ThreatAlert framework and system, to meet your requirement needs for hardening, for compliance, and such. And we use the proper remediation procedures as part of our recommendations and work with you hand in hand to make sure. We have access to a CISSP certified resource. We have plenty of certified security architects, and I could go down the line in terms of what we have, but the important thing is we have a staff of knowledgeable and experienced resources to make sure that what you're set up and that you're working with people that know what they're talking about. And it's not just data that's flowing through, leaving you to guess what you're being told. And we try to follow a POEM management approach. So that way, and we're very big on that, understanding where your risks are, how old they are, and what is that where is that leaving you? So we use the foundations of the NIST and FedRAMP and DOD continuous monitoring reporting and POEM management to handle that. It's a great structure, and we've built that into our dashboard. The ThreatAlert product is very flexible in terms of its boundaries. So we can manage it for you. We have it up. We can run it. We can take care of it and just have that small footprint into your environments and then give you alerts and everything. Or maybe based on certain compliance structures, you need to have it inside your environment. That's not a problem. ThreatAlert can be installed anywhere. It's very, very flexible, and it can handle just about any environment you want to put it in. So part of the offerings that are behind stackArmor's ThreatAlert, as I said, it's not just one thing. It's a bunch of things. It's a combination, what I'll call a smart combination of tools and people. So we have what we call the security architecture review, and we use that to provide analysis using the well-architected framework benchmarks, full scans, etc., to let you know exactly where you lie in terms of your architecture. And we can use that to meet up against just AWS as well-architected framework benchmarks, or if you need to meet SOC 2, HIPAA, NIST, we are fully able to make sure that our architecture reviews are geared towards what you need. And this is one of those initial things that we try to do. We need to know where you're at when we're using ThreatAlert. So you don't want to just throw something in. We need to understand where we're starting from and create a baseline and work with that. It's managed security and compliance services. So this is continuous security. This is Conmon. This is where I was saying changes occur to your configurations of AWS or to your environment. We're going to know. Within the agreements we have with you, if you want us to monitor your OSs, it's coming in. We're going to let you know when we see patches, and I'll show you again in a report, a sample report of what we're talking about in terms of letting you know via different ways what's going on in your environment, so that you can make sure that you're always secure and meeting your compliance requirements as well. Penetration testing. Well, we use what I consider to be the best practices in penetration testing, which for many of you probably run into this. People think, oh, you're just going to take a cyber hammer and nail and just try and nail in and see where you can poke holes in my application. It's really not that. It's a multi-phase engagement where it's not just about trying to poke holes in your application, but it's about discovery and investigation. It's about understanding it. The testing comes in the third part, as I like to say, of a penetration test plan. Before that, we're discovering, we're investigating to make sure that externally and internally everything matches up correctly, whether it's DNS or your exposed ports. It's, it's vulnerability scanning. It's only after we find vulnerabilities that we're going to try and use the various proper tools to do penetration testing, which leads me to fuzz testing, which is, again, a very powerful tool to use. If required, we can do that in order to really try and create problems with your applications where we see it using what they call random large amounts of data, which is what's known as fuzz. And that's, therefore fuzz testing. So I'm going to take you around and show you a little bit to what part of the threat alert is. And we'll start with threat alert itself. So as you see, we have this dashboard, and this is really the heart of what we have as part of our electronic offering, and that this is always updated. And as you can see by the various dashboard items, we're trying to show you where your current state is at. So our company, Acme Widgets, has a few low vulnerabilities, more than a few, and medium, and some highs and no criticals. And so, again, it's to give you an idea of what's going on in your environment. And we show you by technology. So in terms of Acme Widget, it's got a lot of security group issues for the majority of their problems, where policies are after that. And then S3 buckets have an issue, which are really easy to create vulnerabilities in if you're not paying careful attention. And we go down as low as we can to let you know, where we're seeing it. Now, using GuardDuty, this wonderful tool that AWS released last year is GuardDuty, and reading all the various logs that you turn on, it can use AI, ML of its own proprietary makings to let you know what threat actors are doing and going on. And so it's in in AWS, it's in a console. But what we were able to do is, by using AWS services and a little Python code, is take that out and map it out for you. So not only do you get to see a lot of data that comes out of GuardDuty that tells you exactly what's going on with people trying to cause problems, which is in the report, but you can see where you're getting the most attention from, which it's important. And you want to know, we get IP information. So if you want to start blacklisting various things, you can. We give you a lot of workable or actionable information to work with. And we kind of let you know, hey, this is where you're seeing the biggest issues come by. So, and then last but not least, my favorite is the POEM board. And the POEM board is ranked by original detection date, and it lets you know where your problems are. And you go from there, you can prioritize what you need to deal with. And this is dynamic in nature, so once something is remediated or taken care of or justified, it goes away. So it's constantly up to date and letting you know exactly what you need to work on. Now, the report. So part of the threat alert offering is that not just providing you with a dashboard or with a alert, is secure and compliant storage for your data. So taking advantage of Amazon WorkDocs, which is a compliant service, we're able to give you reporting. Oops. We've built up a structure. We've written an entire paper on this and a structure on how to use WorkDocs as a compliant structure to maintain your documentation when your auditors come knocking. So we do it there, and this is kind of a sample of what you would see, where we put all reporting in here. We don't share reports over the internet. It's bad. It's your vulnerabilities. You want everybody to get a hold of that? So we keep it stored. We keep it stored in WorkDocs for you. And from there, you can take a look at your reports. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up a sample report for Acme Widgets. And this is, per Dan, and as I'm finding with everybody, one of the biggest value adds out of the threat alert system. And I won't bore you with the introduction. It's great. I recommend you read it. It's a great author. So we start by providing not details that your engineers would love and put management to sleep. We start with summary. We want to let you guys know at the top level, what are you dealing with? And then we give you the data so your engineers can work with us to make sure that everything's remediated. But you don't want to see the specifics of IPs and ports and technical names thrown around that half the time I can't even remember. but we have that executive summary. So we start with the scan details, letting you know. In this case, Acme widget, it's got 36 issues with its AWS infrastructure, high. Normally that means we gotta upgrade the OS. And then we have some medium stuff. We have some medium findings for the ECR, I'm sorry, the AWS infrastructure is, sorry, the AWS infrastructure is for the infrastructure itself. The ECR images is what we scanned with Anchor and pulled in. We've got 32, and that typically what we find is we need to upgrade some OSs. From there, we found 154 medium AWS infrastructure issues from our scanning. And we give you a quick, text-based analysis, no critical level findings. Again, we're using NIST, a trusted source of severity guide to let you know where we're seeing these things. High level findings, nothing this time. Okay, medium level. Yeah, we got 32 medium levels going on in your repositories. Here's the repositories. What's the recommendation? Well, because we provide the data and it's only 32 between various repositories, we're pretty much going to say you need to update those particular packages. But I've also seen cases where we found so many issues, we said, look, you're on this low version of Linux, you need to upgrade to the next version of Linux. And as you can see, we provide that data. So you can always go in and see the data that led to that analysis. Now, in the AWS infrastructure, as you may recall, there's about 36 findings. Well, we had 28 instances of S3 buckets with policies that were found to could lead to unauthorized access, and 8 instances of port 22 open to all IP addresses. And as we all know, that can lead into brute force attacks. Nobody wants that. Well, at least maybe, unless they're hackers. Again, we provide you with the data, but we also provide you with the recommendations, which is very important to us. And the same thing goes with the medium level. And we don't just throw it all at you. We group it. We try to give you an idea of exactly what you're seeing within your infrastructure. So it's not just going to be 154. We group it into what we think are the proper categories to kind of give you an idea of what you're dealing with. From there, we take our AWS GuardDuty data and we put it in the report to kind of let you know what we're seeing. Same stuff you saw on the dashboard, but it also looks good in the report if you guys can't get to the dashboard, which is a case, like I said, where we're finding is people don't really want to log in constantly and look at the dashboard thing, just go to a report or get a hold of that report. So as you can see, for the GuardDuty, we're finding it's mostly just port probes and network connections. It's just sniffing. And the whole data with everything can be there, so if you want to take the IPs and blacklist them, that's not a problem. In addition, we provide daily events of interest. And this is important because this is where we're constantly taking in data that goes on a daily basis or more than a daily basis, and we're trying to let you know how things are going and where you need to take care of things within your infrastructure. So security doesn't stop at the walls, it's also what's inside that you need to make sure is going on. So you have the hosts with missing security patches, to 400 and 500 errors, to seeing invalid user errors, to AD signature updates, use of sudo, use of SU. And this is Linux-based, but we can do Windows as well, showing you where we're seeing local user creations, group file creation and deletion. We monitor all these things to kind of let you know. And as I said, at the end, we give the data that engineers love to have to work with and let you know exactly what it is that's going on. All the details we can possibly give you that your engineers may want that you may not want. So to take you back, that would be the main, not really the main offerings of ThreatAlert. Like I said, the main offering is what you're getting behind this, which is the data combined with people's analysis. Penetration testing, again, a very big deal. A very simple phrase to say, involves a lot more than people realize. And one of the more important things is not just the exploitation. It's not, that comes towards the end. The important thing is understanding what you want, defining your scope and your goals. You know, as a client, understanding exactly what is it you're trying to get to. Is it a compliance recommendation, or are you just worried that your application, your network, what so have your environment is just too open and you need to see what's out there? So it's about really defining what it is that you're trying to get at with this. You don't want to just say, I want a penetration test. It's not useful. Next, what I consider to be one of the most important aspects of it is not the exploitation, it's reconnaissance and enumeration. This is where the ThreatAlert team takes all available tools. Some of you may know Whois, Nmap, Nessus, OpenVAS, whatever have you, to really find out what's going on inside and outside of your application, your environments. And this is really what leads us to understand if we even need to do exploitation testing at that point. From there, if we find stuff, we'll let you know. We'll obviously report it as we're going along, and we will do the exploitation, we'll do reporting, the remediation, etc. And from there, like I said, the reporting, we're going to report in all the stages. And towards the end, if it requires a letter of attestation, stackArmor has no problem giving you a letter of attestation saying these guys are clean. Then from fuzzing, we have a couple of tools, and this one we use OpFuzz. And like I said, it's a very it's a fun process, but it's not as simple as saying fuzz test me. It's about generating the right data. It's about understanding the applications and generating the right data, and then pushing it all in, testing out the application, and then letting you know. And the important thing about this is that it really, really lets you know how well built your application is. This combined with static code analysis can really make sure that your application is tight. Without this and without static code analysis, you're kind of flying blind. GP, I'm going to hand it back to you.
Rick, thank you very much for that wonderful walkthrough of ThreatAlert. And for the audience, thank you very much for basically being so patient and being online and sending us all of your questions. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to quickly read out some of the questions that we received over the console and try my best to answer them. So one of the questions was, what's the benefit of stackArmor ThreatAlert versus Alert Logic or Alien Vault? I think that's a great question, and our view is that Alert Logic and Alien Vault and similar services are great technologies and great tools, but we think ThreatAlert is more of a service that is customized for specific use cases. So if you're a company in the healthcare space, or you're a SaaS provider, or you're a public sector organization or financial service organization, one of the things we've heard again and again is there is no lack of tools, but as Rick said, it's the people behind the tools that is lacking. And so a lot of customers don't have the expertise, don't have the security analysts to be able to go in and essentially implement a security and monitoring solution. And that's what really ThreatAlert is. So it's really not an apples to apples comparison with a product. We see ourselves more as a full stack service. Great question. The next question I have is, does the ThreatAlert service monitor based on a compliance level, or is it more from a secure posture as a minimum for, say, PCI DSS compliance? So I think that's a great question. The best thing that I would answer is we have worked for almost 20 years in public sector and public sector oriented systems, and we just strongly believe that the NIST Cybersecurity Framework, particularly based on NIST SP 800-53, is probably the most comprehensive, well-written, and fairly prescriptive technology security requirements document. And so we really have designed ThreatAlert to meet the security requirements as expressed in the NIST guidance. And by most experts that we have talked to, and most of the crosswalks we have done against PCI, HIPAA, or other frameworks, we believe that the NIST 800-53 controls more than adequately meet the needs of these other frameworks. So again, if you're, if you have a specific PCI requirement, we believe the ThreatAlert service can meet those requirements, but we just feel that the NIST framework is a little bit more complete, more prescriptive, and then therefore allows us to go in and do a better job of protecting the environment for specific things. Great question. The next question I have is log monitoring part of the package? And the answer to that is yes. Again, as I briefly mentioned, we use a lot of the Amazon native services, like, for example, CloudTrail, Config, CloudWatch, etc. And we build essentially an alerting and monitoring capability on top of that. So yes, the log monitoring service is part of ThreatAlert. Lots of other questions. Let me just quickly go through some of these. It sounds like this is active monitoring. Do you have an appliance that does packet inspection of all traffic? Yes, we offer deep packet inspection for certain specific types of customers. We again use behind the scenes from a ThreatAlert service certain third-party capabilities that offer that. And so if there is a specific deep packet inspection capability that you need, we can talk about that. But we do offer a deep packet inspection as part of the service. It also is sometimes required for forensic analysis and for reconstructing for different kinds of compliance reasons, the ability on what traffic perused through your network. Again, great questions, and I will try my best to try and get through some of these questions as best as I can. And the final question was, will these slides be made available to the attendees? Yes, we will make these slides available to the attendees, but we request that you send us an email at the email address given below, and we would like to have information about you and who we are sending this information to. So we will go ahead and make sure that we provide you the contents from this particular webinar, and we will also be making available a video recording of this webinar presentation. Another question that just popped up, what about OS level logs? Yes, so we do offer the ability to log and monitor and analyze operating system level logs, whether they are Windows-based or Linux-based, Red Hat, what have you. But yes, OS level logging in addition to application level logging is part of the ThreatAlert service. So with that, folks, I know we are coming close to the wrap-up time for this session. Again, we truly appreciate your participation and lots of wonderful questions. If there are some specific topics that you would like to see us cover, please don't hesitate to send us that information. We're also pretty active on Twitter and LinkedIn. And again, if we can help you in meeting some of your specific compliance and security needs on Amazon specifically, we would love an opportunity to share more about our capabilities and see if we can help you. With that, this is the stackArmor team signing off and wishing all of you a great Wednesday, and hope to see you on some of our next sessions coming up. Thank you.
Thank you.